Hi everyone, and welcome to another video. Today I'm going to be discussing the current and past happenings around Taylor Nicole Dean. So before I get into this, I want to state that this will not be a common video type that I will be doing on my channel. I have really no intent on getting too involved in very specific drama or mentioning very specific people. I just feel that because this one is relevant right now, I have seen a lot of opinions that I generally don't agree with, and I just wanted to put my thoughts out there because I think maybe it could be helpful to some arguments. I will also state this video is not purely going to be a support video or a hate video, so if you're here for one or the other, don't expect to get that from me. So to start, I want to go over some of the deaths that people claim that Taylor Nicole Dean has had. A lot of people have claimed that she has had a disproportionate amount of deaths by her hands, and while I'm not necessarily going to deny that maybe at one point in her life she had too many animals, as a way to prove that she's had a lot of deaths by her hand, I see people point out that she's had mantids die, or feeder rats, or hedgehogs, and what I don't think a lot of people are considering is Taylor Nicole Dean has been on the internet for, I think, about 10 years at this point. She went into posting on the internet with adult hedgehogs, and hedgehogs, if you're lucky, might make it to 8 years, but they do have an average lifespan of 4 to 6, so it makes sense that her adult hedgehogs would not have lived to this point. Mantids, on the other hand, also only really live about a year maximum. Feeder rats are not known for their longevity. I personally just don't think it's terribly accurate to base someone's care of their animals on how many fish that they've had die, because if you've had fish for any extended period of time, you would know that they do have a tendency to be sensitive. Not to say that some deaths aren't necessarily preventable, but if you've had a lot of fish, you've probably dealt with tank crashes, random deaths that you have no explanation for. You could be doing everything perfect in your fish care, and it's likely you're still gonna have fish die of unexplainable causes. It just happens. I think most other experienced fish keepers would agree. I also don't think people are taking into account that the more animals you have, the more likely freak accidents are going to happen. Maybe some of these freak accidents could have been prevented, like I know a lot of people will quote the power surge that she claimed had killed a couple of her animals, and it happens. It's an accident. I had quite a few animals die a couple years ago. They were mostly fish, but I did have quite a few animals die a few years ago when my state dealt with a very severe snowstorm, and we lost power for I think 3 or 4 days. And at the time, I really didn't have any way to connect power back to the tanks. They're tropical fish. Some of my animals were just not strong enough to handle it. Things happen. All you can really do is move on from that point. Now, this doesn't excuse any deaths or illnesses that happened by her hands due to being under the influence or smoking weed in the room with the animals, but I don't think a lot of people are considering the fact that drugs do make you irrational. It's not an excuse, but it happened. That's the fact of the matter. Addiction is a serious disease, and it makes you maybe not the greatest person in the world at times. Now for maybe some of the less serious things I've seen people talking about. I see a lot of people accuse Duck, her short-tailed python. I don't remember if it's a Borneo or a Sumatran, but I see a lot of people accusing the snake of being obese. Now, I personally don't think the vast majority of people having an opinion on that snake's weight are educated enough to be doing so. I don't think the vast majority of people on the internet are aware that heavy-bodied snakes like short-tails exist, and therefore they are comparing the body weight and the general size of short-tails to something like a ball python, which isn't as heavy-bodied. If you go and look at pictures of Duck, you can see a very clear spine ridge, suggesting that she is in fact not overweight, or at least not heavily so. Speaking of snakes, I'm personally not a fan of the content she's been making recently with Tofu and showing him pictures of Markiplier and him freaking out. For a one-time video, it's one thing, but it has been a consistent thing, and while I do know that it's kind of spread out, like she's not recording all these videos in one day and just spending hours upon hours harassing him, it's just not my style of content. I hold that opinion for a lot of other snake keepers, and I'm gonna make a whole other video on a related topic to that. But after the one time and just testing it out and making the kind of funny video being like, wow, this is weird for my snake to do, I think it should have just been left at that. Alternatively, I have been seeing people say that snakes aren't supposed to be nippy, And while there are certain species that are less likely to be nippy, I don't think a lot of people are considering the fact that snakes are individuals. Some of them are just like that. I can't speak for Tofu specifically. I have seen people say that Tofu has a tendency to strike at Taylor a lot, but I haven't seen that personally. Any of the videos that she seems to post with him, he's pretty chill with her. It's just with Markiplier that he freaks out for some reason. But sometimes snakes are just assholes. There are certain species that are kind of known for it more than others, and even if the species itself isn't, every snake is an individual. Some snakes are just gonna be maybe a little bit more touchy than others. On the topic of Tofu, though, obviously the big thing right now is the accusation that Tofu has been replaced at some point. I think this is an unfounded accusation. There's one screenshot that's been going around, and I'll post it here too. But the screenshot itself does not state that he actually died, just that she thought he did. While the circumstances surrounding what led to that screenshot were maybe not okay and were still scary, I really just don't get where people are getting the idea that the snake is dead and has been replaced, because the screenshot that everyone is using as proof doesn't state that he died. Off the topic of snakes, though, I'm personally also not a fan that however many years ago that she did this, that she decided to take home 2-week-old kittens. I think they were 2 weeks old, maybe they were 1 week old, but they were very young, they were bottle babies. She herself stated at the time of taking these cats that she had no experience with cats. I do think it is wildly irresponsible to do something like that. I've had cats my entire life, and I'm not entirely sure I would be comfortable bottle feeding very young kittens. But at the end of the day, it's clearly worked out pretty okay for her, minus the one kitten that was a failure to thrive. This is another one people will mention when they talk about the deaths that have happened under her roof. A failure to thrive is just that. There is not a single thing you can do about it. It's just gonna happen. You can have the best care in the world. That cat could have been at the best veterinary hospital in the world, and it still would have died. At the end of the day, while I don't agree with her getting cats of that age, again, it seems to have worked out. The cats are doing fine. I don't think they're being abused. It is what it is. Ultimately, mistakes happen to everyone. It's okay to acknowledge that the mistakes that you made were inexcusable, so long as you make an effort to fix the circumstances that led to those mistakes. What's done is done, and clearly there's been effort made to correct these mistakes, such as rehoming the animals upon sobriety, getting better enclosures, and just making a whole video admitting to mistakes. It is entirely unhelpful to shame people for mistakes that were made years ago when there has been clear effort to correct that. Especially when it comes to the topic of rehoming, I see a lot of people shaming her for rehoming their animals, and I just want to know what people wanted to happen. First, you claim that she is not in a place to be caring for animals and shouldn't have gotten the animals in the first place, which is fine, have that opinion if you want. But she had the animals. Did you want her to just kill them or rehome them? Like, there's no winning to some of these people. She recognized she was not in a place to care for these animals properly and sent them off to homes where they could get the proper care. Rehoming is not a crime. I don't see why we are shaming her for recognizing that she was not in a place to give them more than subpar care and sent them off to where they were going to get the best life. Despite her addictions and the mistakes in the past, no one's exempt from criticism. We should absolutely be criticizing people, especially people who put themselves in the public eye for the way that they care for their animals. But I do think a lot of the people who are approaching topics like this are doing so without much thought or much proof, and are coming from a place that isn't experienced, and they're going into it acting like they're experts, or as if what happened 5+ years ago is still actively happening right now. If you are a pet owner, you are incredibly performative if you act like you've never made a mistake a day in your life. Owning exotics, or just pets in general, is a learning experience, and it should be. Like, you should constantly be striving to give your animals better care. Mistakes only become an issue when there is a refusal to change. If you are given new information and do nothing to change your standard of care, then it's an issue. But in this case, to me, I don't think that's what's happening. Clearly, there's been some inexcusable things that have happened in the past. You can choose to believe the videos she's put out or not. You can choose to believe the he said, she said that's been happening over the last few years. But at the end of the day, she's admitted to her mistakes. She rehomed a bunch of animals so that she had less of a burden to deal with while she focused on her health and sobriety. and I really don't have any reason to think that the animals currently in her care are being abused or anything. Again, I don't particularly care for the newer videos with Tofu and stressing him out with pictures of Markiplier, but it is what it is. I think a lot of the people who are talking about this are really just obsessed with the idea of what happened in the past. They're kind of obsessed with Taylor Nicole Dean as a whole. I think just in general, it's kind of really weird how a lot of people have approached the topic and the way that they act, and I don't know, I'm just sick of seeing people spread not even totally correct information about the whole thing, while also saying that she's spread misinformation. I'm not denying that she has done that in the past, but it's not helpful if you are going to do the same thing in the same breath. That'll be all for today. This is likely going to be the only time I talk about something like this, but I guess let me know what you think. And yeah, I'll see you in the next one.